Hi, this is Kerry from Twisted Orca, and I am here with Donna Sandstrom, the founder and director of the Whale Trail. Hi, Donna.
Hi, Carrie.
I'm so glad to be talking to you today.
I'm
So
really happy to be here.
good. Well, tell me, what can you tell us about the Whale Trail?
Well, the Whale Trail is a series of locations to watch whales from shore, orcas or other marine mammals. We started it in 2008 to build awareness about the endangered southern resident orcas. Most people are aware of the orcas that they come back to the San Juan Islands, but here in Washington State, where I live, people didn't really understand that this whole region is important to them. In fact, the orcas travel as far south as Monterey Bay and as far north as like Ucluelet and Tofino on Vancouver Island, sometimes around the whole of Vancouver Island. So we wanted to just build awareness about the southern resident throughout their whole range, let people know who they are, where they lived, and hopefully inspire people to then take care of the salmon bearing streams along the coast. You know, the orcas eat salmon that come from major rivers like the Klamath and the Sacramento that people don't necessarily associate with the orcas, but taking care of those watersheds throughout this region is really important to them. So we started it to build awareness and to promote shore-based whale watching. You know, watching from shore is something anyone can do. It's free, and it lets people know how they can, where and when they can watch whales.
Now, there's over 100 sites right now, correct?
Yes, I'm. We started with 16 sites in Washington State. The Whale Trail was founded by a core team of partners: NOAA Fisheries, the Seattle Aquarium, the Whale Museum, and then we added a few other partners like the Olympic Coast National Marine Sanctuary along the way. We started with 16 sites in Washington State, around the state. Our goal was just to identify across the whole state where were the best places to watch whales. So we came up with 16 inaugural ones. And we reached out to them and said, do you want to be part of the Whale Trail? And everybody said yes. And since then, it's just expanded year after year. In 2010, we added our first signs on the Strait of Juan de Fuca in Washington. 2011, our signs went on the Washington State ferries, and those, of course, aren't shore-based sites, but they're great educational platforms to watch whales from. And then in 2014, we worked with the National Marine Sanctuary's West Coast region and added our first signs in California. So we achieved our goal of getting to the southern end of the southern resident orca range. And in 2015, we started working with Oceanwise in British Columbia, who wanted to promote and identify places people could watch whales from shore. And they also wanted to get citizen sightings. They wanted to know encourage people, if they saw whales from shore, to share them with Whale Report, their citizen sighting app. So it just seemed like the right idea. I didn't understand this, but it was the right idea at the right time. A lot of people have had the idea of something like a whale trail. It's kind of so elemental, people think it already exists. You know, it's such a natural idea, and a simple one, but all the pieces came together with our partnership team, and it just, and I had the time and the wherewithal to do this. So we did. So yeah, we started with 16 sites, and now there's more than 120 along the West Coast, and we go from California up through British Columbia.
Wow. Now, see, that's amazing because I think so many people don't even have an idea that you can see whales from land or where you can see them. So that's a very, very good resource. And it's so important, especially for the southern residents, because I know boat traffic is a big problem over there, endangering the
Yeah.
whales. So,
And one really interesting thing, Carrie, is that over time, yeah, the whale trail has become an important alternative. We don't have to choose between watching southern residents from a boat or seeing them. If we did have to make that choice, we should still always choose what's best for the whales. But
right.
happily, we don't have to make that choice here in Washington. the Salish Sea is a deep urban fjord that is ringed with locations where you can have these incredible experiences watching whales, including the first site on the whale trail was Limekiln State Park on San Juan Island, where you probably know you can see whales. It's a deep, steep drop off there, and you can see whales just feet away and have the confidence you're not disturbing the whales. I want to be clear, we're not against boat-based whale watching. I love seeing whales from boats. It's been a big part, some of the best experiences of my life have been seeing orcas and other whales from boats. But it has to be sustainable for the species that are being watched. And we reached a tipping point here in the Salish Sea, I would say probably over a decade ago, when the explosive growth of the growth of the industry and the hours they operate were too much, for the whales. And the connection, of course, is that orcas need to echolocate to find their food. And if they can't hear, it doesn't matter how many fish are there. All the science says that salmon availability is what matters, not salmon abundance matters, but salmon availability matters more. So this, I don't know if you're aware of this, but in this alternative way of viewing them has been affirmed. NOAA Fisheries published a study in January showing that female southern resident orcas stop foraging when vessels get closer than 400 yards. Stop foraging. So they've been under intense acoustic pressure for the last decade. And most people are surprised. I mean, there were, in 2018, there were 54 whale watching companies operating more than 130 vessels.
Wow.
And they stayed with the whales 9 a.m. till 10:30 at night in the peak season. And the whales can't hide. Other land animals that are the objects of intense tourism interest can hide, but orcas have to breathe to come up for air. So from my perspective, and what the science shows, is this has just kind of been this unrelenting and growing pressure. Whale watching companies in Canada voluntarily stopped watching the southern residents in 2018. And the government of Canada instituted a moratorium on watching the whales they suspended whale watching on the southern residents by all vessels beginning in 2019, I think. Anyway, I'm digressing a bit, but what's interesting is that this isn't an issue just here, it's an issue around the world as we are all becoming more aware of how destructive noise can be, not just to the cetaceans who rely on echolocation, but the whole marine ecosystem. Everyone is looking for less intrusive ways to experience wildlife. How do we love them and connect with them without hurting them?
It's a very fine line.
Yeah, and shore-based whale watching is one easy way to do that.
That is fantastic. You know what, Donna, it would seem that you would have absolutely no spare time with everything that you've done in the last few years with the whale trail, but you've actually had time to write a fantastic children's book about a real life event that you were involved in.
Oh yeah, thank you. What inspired me to start the whale trail is I've been interested in orcas for a long time, since I moved to Seattle in the early 80s. And they became my passion, my hobby, and then a passion. And then I had, a career in software, and I was doing other things. But in 2002, a little orphaned whale showed up here near where I live in West Seattle, a little orca. And at first, no one knew who she was. Her saddle patch was very obscured. As you know, a saddle patch is how we tell orcas apart. And on this little whale, there were 3 unusual things. One, she was by herself. Orcas are generally never by themselves. They live with their families, especially resident orcas, stay with their mothers their entire lives. So to see whale by itself was unusual. And you couldn't see her saddle patch. And a saddle patch on an orca is like a fingerprint. And her skin was really mottled and obscured. So it was a huge mystery. What is this little whale doing here? And who is she? And through a wonderful series of events from her calls, actually, researchers were able to identify her as a member of an A4 pod, which lives on the north end of Vancouver Island. So somehow this little whale, whose home territory was 300 miles away, found her way to Seattle. And her mom had died, but or had disappeared, presumed dead, and but her grandmother and her aunts were still alive, and cousins. So NOAA Fisheries, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, and the Vancouver Aquarium, we encouraged them that she should have a chance to go home and not to an aquarium. And we encouraged them to try an in situ rehabilitate her in the somewhere in Puget Sound instead of sending her to an aquarium. We were terrifically concerned that if she might never come out if she went to an aquarium, and if she was healthy enough, we thought she deserved a chance to rejoin her family. And so they did. They committed to do the first ever in situ rehabilitation of an orca. We formed a group of nonprofits to support them in that effort. And she was, to make a very long and wonderful story short, she was carried back to Johnstone Strait in mid-July in 2002, and her family came to greet her less than 24 hours after she was returned.
And that is such an inspiring story, especially with things in the news. I know the whole world was watching with TOA, and but to let the world know that there are happy endings, and that when the volunteers get involved and put in that effort, that it's possible to be reunited and to live a happy life.
It's true. And Carrie, the two things, so she rejoined her family, and she, the next year everyone was waiting, will she come back, will she come back, and she did, and she's come back nearly every year since then. And today she's got two full-grown calves, not two calves of her own, and you can watch them on the Orca Lab sites at explore.org. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but explore.org is this wonderful wildlife viewing website where you can watch through these cams all around the world. I spend most of my summer watching the brown bears in Alaska, catching salmon, and watching the orcas at Orca Lab, including Springer. So I encourage
that must feel good.
Yeah, I encourage all of you to watch what goes on there. It's kind of amazing to see. Again, we're observing these animals as intimately as you could ever hope to see them, and we're not disturbing them at all. So Springer is really what inspired me. What I experienced was, first, we all learned how to work together. People who are usually on opposite sides of many issues came together because we had this problem to solve. We had to get this whale home. We had to keep her healthy along the way, and we had to get her home in time to possibly rejoin her family and do something that had never ever been done before, high risk and expensive. So one thing, we had to work together. Second, we took a risk. It was a pragmatic risk. There was a very good chance there were any number of ways it could have failed, but there were very good odds that it would succeed. And what I saw firsthand was the courage decision makers at NOAA Fisheries and the Department of Fisheries and Oceans and the Vancouver Aquarium took. That in hindsight I see as unusual. Many organizations are kind of conservative and won't take big risks. And this was a big risk. If it had failed, it would have been terrible for all of us. But we all took the risk because we thought it was worth it. There was a chance she could go home, and it bore out. And so I wrote the book. The book is from my perspective. It follows Springer's story from the time she shows up until current day. And my deepest hope is that it inspires people to look at the world today with the same eyes. What can we do now, and how do we work together? And this was the main thing. We put the whale's best interest first. I watched NOAA make every decision to maximize the chance it would be successful. And that's important, because when that's your North Star, doing the right thing for the whales or whatever it is, then you can get past all the human things that often derail things like this. Yeah.
Now, the book I know is on pre-order right now. When is it going to be officially available to purchase?
Thanks for asking. Yes, it comes out October Well, the publication date is October 5th. So that's when it should be available in bookstores or anywhere you can find it. But you can pre-order online now, and a copy will be sent to you, of course.
That's perfect. And then what I'm going to make sure that we do is include a link after this video to where
Oh,
we can pre-order the book, so that
great.
anybody watching will be able to find that book. And I know that I am really looking forward to it coming out.
The book includes a lot of information about orcas, because you kind of have to understand about orcas to understand Springer's story, why it was, to understand her story. I want to say a special, the illustrator is Sarah Burwash, a Canadian artist, and her illustrations are just out of they're just wonderful. They really carry the text along, and I think I certainly would have loved having a book like this. And I hope I hope children, I think it's meant for middle grades, but I think anyone will enjoy it. I don't think there's anything like it.
And I agree, and I'm looking at some of the pictures that are in the book, and they are absolutely beautiful. And I know growing up as a child, I think since I was 3, I loved orcas, and I remember trying to get my hands on any book, which was a lot harder when I
Yeah,
was growing up. We didn't
yeah,
have books online,
yeah.
and I would have absolutely loved this book as a child. So I'm very excited that it's coming out. And is there anything else that you want to leave? Any final thoughts you want to leave with anybody before
Um,
we go today?
no, I just want to say, I guess I want to say that, one thing, it's a precarious time in our world right now, in our history as a species, in our history. There are so many things, but the way forward is grounding ourselves in facts, relying on the facts, like for the Southern residents, especially what is we broke this. It's all human caused impacts hurting the Southern residents, and how can we fix it? So choosing hope, and choosing taking bold steps to invent our way forward together is the way. And that's what I hope everyone is encouraged to do. That's what we're doing with the whale trail too. I encourage everybody to, the whole world is a whale trail. And so my goal is actually to take, when we get the West Coast, done, I'm hoping we can do the whale trail on the East Coast and
And
in
I'm
other.
on the East Coast, and I'm looking forward to that. I would love to be involved in that.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Donna. And I'm really excited about the book coming out. And I encourage everybody to get a copy. The illustrations are beautiful, and I think it's a very inspiring story.
Thanks so much, Carrie. Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me. Uh-huh.